Hey everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of DLN Xtend. I know it's going to sound like we're on Hardware Addicts. That's where you'll find me every 2 weeks. But this is, for certain, DLN Xtend, and it's time to discuss affordable Linux hardware. This episode of DLN Xtend is brought to you by DigitalOcean and Bitwarden. Welcome to episode 34 of DLN Xtend. DLN Xtend is a community-powered podcast. We take conversations from around the community on the discourse, forums, Telegram groups, Discord server, and so much more. We also take topics from other shows and give you our spin on them.
Hey guys, I'm just outside of Winnipeg. I think I just might actually catch a Snorlax. I'm told they're slow and easy to wrangle. I'll let you know how it goes. So talk to you next week.
This week, we have my fantastic co-host, Matt, and all of his crazy hardware glory. And joining us this week is Jason. We are so excited to have you, Jason. Thanks. Of your super awesome writing powers on Front Page Linux. And we can't forget about Linux for Everyone. What have you been up to this week?
That was a great intro because I've been doing a lot of front page Linux stuff. We really want to take front page Linux and turn it into a professional, entertaining, informative source for all things Linux, whether that's, guides, tutorials, video, or just straight news. So we've been working with a lot of members of the community, honing their skills a bit. Michael and I have been bouncing off of each other, editing, and he's doing featured images, and I'm doing headlines and formatting, and it's been a lot of fun. And I've been writing a few articles here and there, and it's got some really good momentum. So we're hoping to just take it into the stratosphere over the next couple months. So shameless plug, I guess, if you're interested in writing up Linux news or guides or tutorials, you just have some interesting stories to tell, reach out to me or Michael, and maybe we can get something published.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. I know there have been some amazing articles on Front Page Linux. It's not something I frequent enough. I need to add it to my daily reading load because you guys are posting some really cool things over there.
Even if you took all of that away and you just had Linux++, I mean, that alone is like a huge hub of information and interviews, and he's basically writing a magazine on his own. And every time that comes out, it is just such a blast of awesome, Linux news. And
the deep dives that he goes into on certain topics is really cool.
Yeah, like the recent one where he did like the entire history of Linux. That was really in-depth, really good.
I love long reads like that where you can just, I'm going to get a cup of coffee and this is what I'm doing for the next 20 minutes is I am just feeding my brains, right?
To steal Dusty's
That one's for you, Ryan. Anyway, enough about me. What's up with you, Matt?
I have been working on various content for certain people that are actually guest hosting. That would be you, Jason, in fact. We got some interesting stuff in the works. I'm going to be working on a collaborative video, shall we say. I'm not sure when that one's going to be out. That might take a little bit. That relies on some other people. But I also got some other content coming down the way. But I've also been working with the Pine phone, and that's been an interesting experiment. I tried the 13 image ISO that someone made. Really cool project. Little finicky with actually booting into some of the ISOs. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it gave me a chance to actually try some of the ones that I had wanted to try. So I tried LunaOS, which is the open source version of WebOS. Yeah, that's continuation. And Sailfish OS. Sailfish is really cool. It's got that kind of Windows Phone vibe, but mixed with like an Android kind of flavor. It's interesting on how it operates. The one I really want to see is, not going to lie, LunaOS, because I'm just a WebOS fanboy, and I'll be the first to admit that. I need to get some stickers for that phone. Because as much as I like that back, and I love the Powered by Linux on the bottom of it, I want some DLN Xtend stickers or some Destination Linux stickers or Linux for Everyone stickers on the back of that phone too. Or maybe a laptop.
If only there was a place where people could buy all of the stickers from the Destination Linux network.
I think we have a store, don't we, Wendy?
I believe we do. And there is a sheet of stickers that you can get that have Destination Linux Network shows on them.
So go get them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about these. I have a cup. It's a stainless steel cup that I use for water and I take with me just about anywhere. And it's got a lot of stickers on it. And the best thing about these stickers is they're smaller, so it can fill in some of the gaps that are missing on my mug. So I can have that much more fun with something that I take with me everywhere.
Exactly. So, Wendy, what have you been up to, though?
It has been an adventure in headsets at around our house again. So if you remember previously, I got my daith pierced, which means I couldn't wear my earbuds, and got a really nice set of over-the-ear headphones. They've been fantastic, but I've been missing the earbuds, right? I've got 4 kids. We're doing stuff around. The headphones are super comfortable, but it's hard to listen to stuff and hear what the kids are doing. So I'm happy to say that my left ear is now less angry, so I can put an earbud in on that side. But my husband broke his Bluetooth headset that he wears around work all the time. You know, that's how he takes phone calls when he's driving, or if he's working on something, he can take phone calls and from the Bluetooth headset. His broke, and we ordered him another pair. Nothing super expensive, because as we've talked about before, he is extremely hard on all hardware. So we don't want an expensive pair of headphones that he's taking in the dirt and grime and grease of working outside. And it was the second day he had him, and he hands me his headset and his phone and says, "Can you make these work better?" So he was mowing the lawn and the phone was in his pocket and the headset kept disconnecting. And I'm like, well, you know, I don't know that there's anything that I can do to fix them. And I set his phone down on the counter and started the book he was listening to and walked mostly right around the house. And it was not a problem. And then my daughter took him, and she has, you know, her phone sitting on the counter and she's walking around the house listening to her music. Not an issue. And my poor husband, it's like his grandpa couldn't wear a watch because just the way the electricity works in his body, he would kill watches. And my husband has something of the same thing where he can wear a watch. It doesn't kill them, but it disrupts the connection between Bluetooth signals and that kind of thing. He really struggles with that. So if you also have that problem and you found a headset that works really good, especially in the grime and grease, I would love to know which one, because it's quite frustrating for him to not be able to get his Bluetooth headset to work and then watch somebody else walk around the house wearing it without a problem.
I actually have a suggestion, Wendy, because I have gone
Yay.
through a ton of Bluetooth headphones that are very finicky with the connection, and I finally found one that I love.
Awesome.
JBL Live.
JBL Live.
JBL Live. And these are, I know that a lot of our Linux listeners aren't necessarily into these features, but it does also include Google Assistant and Alexa by just kind of tapping the left ear cup. You can get your notifications, you can call people, you can do all those Google Assistant type things. They sound great, and I have tested the connection like all through my apartment, and wherever I go in my apartment, I have not ever had a broken audio connection.
I'll be talking to him and he'll start, you know, cutting out or whatever, and it's the connection issue between his phone and the headset. And it's, you know, sometimes his hands are absolutely covered in grease or, you know, whatever he's doing. And so being able to get a phone call answered without having to touch his phone is extremely important. So I will definitely look into those and see what he thinks. Thank you very much for that suggestion.
This episode of DLN Xtend is sponsored by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean offers the simplest, most developer-friendly cloud platform. It's optimized to make managing and scaling apps easy with an intuitive API, multiple storage options, integrated firewalls, load balancers, and more. DigitalOcean recently announced new features and services such as a virtual private cloud in all regions, free of charge. This lets you create multiple private networks to isolate your workloads. Container Registries is now available to all users. Easily store and manage private container images and push images seamlessly to DigitalOcean's Kubernetes. You can get all of this plus access to their world-class customer support for as low as $5 per month. Get started on DigitalOcean for free with a $100 credit by going to do.co/DLN, and you can use that $100 credit for spinning up over a dozen droplets or even some monster-sized droplets for 2 months. Again, you can get started on DigitalOcean with a $100 credit by going to do.co/DLN.
I am always looking for new recommendations, and Lenovo has now recommended 30 different laptops running Linux. This is so cool. And on their website, they have a page that is talking all about what Linux, who uses Linux, why, what are some of the popular Linux distributions. And they even answer the question on this website, are Lenovo laptops, quote unquote, certified to run Linux? It is so exciting to see such a major laptop company not only offering Linux laptop, but also offering some information to their everyday users on what Linux is and what it's used for.
You know, they had made the initial offerings with, was it the P series, Jason, mostly? The ThinkPad P series, like their high-end workstation stuff?
Yeah, the P1, the P53. And this all began with a partnership with Fedora, with a trio of ThinkPad laptops. One of those has already launched. It's the X1 Carbon Gen 8, and the other two are coming very, very soon. And then about 2 months later, they dropped another bombshell, a much, much bigger bombshell, saying, hey, we're going to certify all of our workstation PCs for Red Hat Enterprise Linux and Ubuntu. And now they're taking it one step further. And this is where things get really cool to me, and probably to a lot of enterprise customers as well. Because even though even though there are these 30 or so workstation PCs that are certified for Ubuntu 2004 LTS, they still had to be manually deployed to those systems. And now they're going to be preloaded on the website, sold globally.
Yeah, I was going to say that is a key thing. I don't think a lot of people understand that, like, this is a really big commitment. I'm going to go, I love Dell and I love Project Sputnik and all the stuff that Dell's done with it, and to actually have an OEM, one of the first OEMs to actually push out Linux in some kind of enterprise way. Dell checkmate. Just gonna say. And Lenovo has made commitments to, you know, upstream as much of the driver structure and all the other stuff that from their work with Fedora, that, you know, when you were interviewing Matthew Miller and Mark Pearson from, you know, Lenovo, those kind of commitments, those are really big commitments for a company. Like that means they're throwing not just money at it, they're throwing man hours that they could be putting in something else. For me, that's exciting to see.
Well, these Lenovo laptops are so awesome, and you can get the latest hardware built into these. They can be an extreme powerhouse to get your work done. The downside is they are not budget friendly for the average Linux user. So what are some of the hardware options that someone can get great use out of, but so much easier on the budget?
Well, this won't take much time to list out.
Really short on the options list.
One of the brand new options that just came onto the market is from Slimbook. Have you guys heard of them? They're a European-based Linux-focused laptop company.
Yeah.
Yep. KDE Slimbook.
Yeah. So that's right. They announced the KDE Slimbook about 5-6 weeks ago. And now they're back with something called the Slimbook Essential. And this is a pair of 14 and 15-inch laptops that are, you know, have a nice aluminum chassis, 1080p display. They even have the 180-degree opening angles, right, that you can just lay flat.
Nice.
They'll come with Intel Core i3, Core i5, or Core i7. And I think you can get up to, 2 terabytes of NVMe SSD storage, and up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. And they start at about $590 US. So it's not on the ultra cheap tier.
But it's not bad for a new laptop.
No, it's not. It's not at all. It's not at all. And especially for a Linux laptop. And the reason I say especially for a Linux laptop is because the reason that you can go and buy something like an Acer Swift 3 with similar specs for cheaper than a purpose-built Linux laptop. Acer is a massive company, and they can employ economy of scale. They manufacture a ton of parts, a ton of systems, and they can get all of that for less money.
Bulk production means that your overall parts are cheaper, and then your offering in the end can be a less expensive product.
Yeah, exactly. And so just a minor rant here, a minor side note. When I hear people saying, well, I'm just going to go buy a used ThinkPad with Windows on it, or I'm just going to go buy an Acer Swift 3 with Windows on it and put Linux on it, you're kind of showing the Linux hardware ecosystem that you don't want to support it, that you don't want Linux on that laptop. And so the more people that, I know this is a big ask of many people, but the more people that can go out and actually pay that extra $50 for the purpose-built Linux laptop, that's going to really help the overall ecosystem.
Like you, Jason, I get a little annoyed when I hear this quote unquote affordable, because affordable is relative to the person looking for a machine. If you have a certain budget, say you're in the $200 to $300 range or whatever, you're probably not going to go and get a new machine for that price, even if it's Windows with i3, i5, or i7 specs. That your best bet is to go to the used market. That's just the reality of it. Like you said, economy of scale. There's a reason you can go to eBay and spend $100 for like a ThinkPad T440S or something, but you're not getting the newest. You're getting 6th gen old hardware. So I find it a little disingenuous. Like, we want Linux laptops, and then they're offered, and people are like, they're too expensive, and then they don't realize they're a niche market. As much as I love Linux, like you said, economy of scale. These guys don't buy in the quantity that a Lenovo or an Acer or a Dell do for components and stuff. They're much smaller.
Yeah. So another thing to think about is that when you buy certain machines from certain companies, so actually, if you were to go to Slimbook and buy the KDE Slimbook that they just started offering, a portion of that purchase will actually go back to the KDE Foundation. And that's kind of nice. And you know what? Maybe they're bumping up the price just a little bit, but hey, it feels good to actually support the hardware maker and also support the distro or desktop environment that's being slapped onto that hardware.
Yeah, such as like System 76. So not only are you getting hardware that is built specifically for Linux, if you call customer support because you have something wrong with it, you don't have to put Windows back on it to try and get it fixed before sending it in for warranty repair or something like that. It's okay that it's running Linux, and it's okay that it may not be running Pop! OS. You're not going to lose your warranty on the hardware because of the software that you installed on that piece of hardware.
Like you mentioned, Wendy, thing that I love about a lot of these Linux-specific OEMs, and this is where I don't think a lot of people take a look, is they're contributing back in some way, shape, or form, either with code or money or employee time or money and employee time, like System 76 case. There are obviously other companies doing stuff like that. The financial stuff pays for a lot of different aspects that I don't think people understand sometimes. It's not just about, it pays a developer. Yeah, it pays a developer, but it also pays for the infrastructure of that project, of that, like Elementary getting kickbacks from some of their partners. It's no different than when these certain versions of like the PinePhone are being sold, and certain projects are getting, Postmarket OS, the other one, now it's Manjaro. Before that was UbiPorts. And they're getting a certain portion of money contributed to their foundation or their project or whatever. That can pay for another developer to work on it, or the lead developer to actually spend full time on it, or it can lead to purchasing hardware so they have more hardware support. Like, there is a lot of elements that I think sometimes in the community people really like they just associate the price tag, and there's no other association whatsoever. And they don't look at like kind of I hate the term bigger picture, but they don't look at the overall, and like you mentioned, Jason, they don't look at the whole ecosystem.
I think though that, man, I'm torn on this one, Matt, because as time goes on and as Linux increases its desktop market share, I don't think that that's something we should expect Linux users to do, right? A lot of us, we want Linux to go mainstream. We want to see more adoption from your typical average PC user who doesn't need it for developing or web design or content production. They just want to browse. They just want to catch up on their email, stay close to friends on social media, do some web shopping, the occasional video conference, and they could get away with doing all that on like a Chromebook.
To fill that gap on Chromebooks itself, if you didn't want one, Pine offers a fantastic option that way. And I think in one of the ways that you are going with that is, I know budgets, especially in the homeschool community that I'm involved in, you have multiple children. They all need a laptop for doing different specific work, and that budget matters. And having hardware that's not going into the landfill, I think, is a great thing. So used hardware is perfect in those circumstances where, for one, it's not being sent to the trash, it's getting reused, it's getting repurposed, and you have multiple systems that are needed for multiple kids.
Let me ask you this, Wendy. Is the Pinebook Pro, which is $199, it's an incredible deal for what you get. Is the Pinebook Pro something that you would hand your father or your grandmother or your typical PC user that's not very tech savvy?
Yeah. I have my in-laws on Linux, and they are definitely not tech savvy at all. And I'm comfortable handing them a Pinebook, especially if it has the distro that they are currently running on it, or at least the current desktop environment on it, so that they already know how it works and how to get around. Because what my in-laws need is access to a browser where they can check their email, check some social media stuff, and then there has to be solitaire on it for my mother-in-law. So as long as we hit those two key things, then we are golden.
That's
Absolutely
awesome. It has to have solitaire. How many? I wonder how many solitaires are available via like Flatpak or Snap. There's got to be at least
2 or 3 different versions of solitaire installed on their Linux system right now. So I'm not sure which one is her favorite. I need to ask, but there's at least one solitaire on there that she likes.
In fairness to what I think, Jason, you're saying is you're talking about the generic consumer who's just going to get, they view computers as cars, get me to point A from point A to point B, correct?
Yes, I am. And I think that even the process of buying the Pinebook Pro might be too complicated for many of them.
It is. And that's part of the problem that I've run into this school year with the Pinebook Pro is you can only order one at a time. I need 4. And so it's a little difficult to say, okay, I want to support this company and order these Pinebook Pros for the kids to use for school. But then that extra time to have to order each one separately, the additional shipping cost of having to order each one separately, and the wait time to get them in makes it harder as a family group that needs this item now, and for the reasons we need it for, waiting a whole long time or making multiple orders makes doing so difficult to support the community in that way.
Can I tell you guys what I would love to see? When you think about the companies that are really making headlines, it's System 76, it's Tuxedo Computers, it's Dell, it's Lenovo, right? You can't go to System 76 and buy a laptop for less than $1,000. And yet they have this very Apple-like reputation in a good way. I'm talking about kind of old Apple, old, innovative, forward-thinking Apple.
High quality too.
High quality, exactly. Mm-hmm. Very high quality, really pushing the envelope in a lot of areas, very progressive. They don't offer anything under $1,000.
Yeah.
And I just wish that we could see a company with that kind of reputation and that kind of business. And yes, they do have a lot of business. They are very, very successful. Make a laptop that's targeting like the $400 to $600 market.
We're in this weird thing because like I think we were having kind of this conversation when the other day, Jason, when, sometimes we live in it so long, like i.e. Linux in this case, go buy a Windows machine, throw Linux on it, build a tower, put Linux, whatever, however you want to get your Linux fix on for your computing, basically. And sometimes we get so fixated into it, we can't actually see outside the bubble. And it's not really that hard because most bubbles tend to be clear. It just might be a little hazy. It's not hard to actually still see outside of it. I don't think a lot of people just want to see outside of it.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
And that would be fantastic if System 76 had a laptop that was in that more budget-friendly range. It doesn't need to be super powerful. This isn't a work machine. It is just a day-to-day, get some things done, mostly through a browser type machine. I would be all over that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be honest. There is now 4 options essentially. If you're looking at OEM specifically built Linux hardware, to actually that's in that 4 to. I'll give Slimbook because of the discrepancy in like currencies and stuff. There, that $400 to $700 range. You have on the low end. You have was it the Starlab is Light 3, I believe it is Light Mark 3. It's like they're 11.6 inch machine, and then you have the 2 from Slimbook. And if you really want it, you can throw the Pinebook in there. So really, you have 4 options as far as current OEM affordable Linux hardware.
This episode of DLN Xtend is brought to you by Bitwarden. Bitwarden is the easiest, safest way for individuals, teams, businesses, and organizations to store their passwords. The fact that Bitwarden is not only open source but has had third-party security testing done is one reason I have chosen to trust them with my passwords. On their blog, they have recently announced another third-party security review has been completed. They have the security assessment available for anyone to review. My favorite part of the report, and I quote, "No exploitable vulnerabilities were discovered." Thank you, Bitwarden, for offering such a feature-rich password manager and making security checks a priority. You can get started with a free account by going to bitwarden.com/DLN. Want to support this open source project and help them continue to conduct third-party security audits? That support starts at only $10 a year. Jump over to bitwarden.com/DLN to learn more. Well, Matt, you typically have a game for us, and it looks like the game you have for us goes right along the lines of being affordable.
Well, yeah, because there's 2 types of ways you can play this game. This game is called Vengeance. It is inspired, plays very much like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, or Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Sorry, let me rephrase. So it's not confused with the new Modern Warfare. This is a multiplayer game. It has a demo, which you're locked to 2 guns, and I believe it's 2 maps. So it's about a quarter of the game. The cool thing with this, though, is it's in that Call of Duty mind frame. So the one thing that Linux lacks, honestly, to me, is kind of those progression-based online shooters. We have Counter-Strike and those kind of games, obviously, but the gameplay style of Call of Duty is very specific to that franchise. It's like trying to compare Battlefield with Call of Duty. They're very Battlefield can try to be Call of Duty all it wants, but Battlefield is its own thing. Same with this. This reminded me of why I like certain games like this, because they can be competitive. It's just a fun game because you can use bots, you can use multiple maps, and its full price game is $8. And then
That is awesome.
Wow.
And they give you basically a quarter of the game with the demo, or quote unquote, for industry terms, vertical slice. And that is really cool. So they're giving you basically 25% of the game for free. And the nice thing, native on Linux.
That makes it even better. And I love it when games offer demos, because there's been quite a few games that I get that I'm like, this looks so awesome. Get to the gameplay and then realize, it's not what I was hoping it would be. And so demos make it much more likely that I will go ahead and purchase the game because I know how the gameplay works and if I like it.
Yeah.
You know what else I just noticed on the Steam page is that I don't know if this is a new development on Steam, but this is the first time I'm seeing it personally. The Steam page on the store listing for this game on Steam says, "Want to have a direct chat with the developers? Join our Discord here." I didn't know that was a thing.
That is very cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. Because before, Steam used to just link to like the developer's website or whatever. So if they integrated Discord stuff, that's props to Steam for that.
I love this review. It's hard gunplay, but easy gameplay. No character BS. No bright pink guns that shoot lasers. Just good old hardcore shooting.
That is what I love, the no nonsense nature of it. Sometimes it's just it's a very solid game, And the fact that it's such a low price, it gives you the demo and it's native, because we've gotten some comments about, oh, well, we talk a lot about Proton games. So here's a native game that, for those that are on the network, we used to play Ballistic Overkill a lot, like as a community, or like if it was Michael and Ryan, you'd always see them streaming occasionally Ballistic Overkill. Ballistic Overkill's official servers were killed off. You still have user servers and stuff, but this is one that's still going and bot support, and just so much to like about this. And I thought it was a really good pick for kind of the affordable aspect of the show this week.
And it lists as one of its key features no microtransactions. So there's a lot of these games that nickel and dime you along the way. And I know Zeb has talked about this.
As a sidebar, Jason, out of all the games you've played for free to play, and you've been in the gaming industry, Warframe's probably the only one to actually do it right.
Nope.
Really?
Nope. Magic the Gathering Arena
also
does it right. I'm not saying that Warframe doesn't, but Magic the Gathering Arena definitely does it right.
No, basically what we're saying is there's, in those particular games, there's no paywall type deal. You can get everything. The gameplay aspect might seem like a grind, but so Wendy, what are some of your interests that you've been working on?
Well, this week I'm jumping back over to our discourse form. So inside the photography section of the discourse, we have had a member, Pragomer. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I have no idea, but they're talking about their photography workflow on Linux. Distro is Manjaro KDE Plasma, Linux user after my own heart. Photo management is Digicam, raw photo editor, Darktable, fine-tuning in GIMP, and then doing any graphics work, Inkscape. So, me and this community member have a lot of the things that are the same, except for when it comes to Digicam. And they were talking about they need to sort through hundreds of thousands of photos. They want to go by year, month, be able to rename them. And not only after they rename them, but when they go back into Darktable, they want that XML file that is attached to the picture to also be renamed at the same time. So if you've done any work in Darktable, go back into your file folders, you'll see an XML file that follows it. And inside that XML file, it lists all of the edits and changes that you've done to that file. And the wonderful thing about Digicam, apparently, especially with this user, is if they rename that file, the XML file that goes with it, also inside of Digicam, is also renamed. So when you go back into Darktable, all of that information travels with it. It would suck to spend a whole lot of time doing a major edit on an image, go back and need to rename it and lose all of that editing or have to re-find that XML file. And another member suggested that, sometimes Darktable won't pull in that new information automatically, and they give a terminal command in order to fix that. But you can also do that directly inside Darktable preferences. So they've changed around a lot of the settings and file menus. So it took me a minute to re-find this setting. But if you go to storage, there is an XMP section, and it can look for an updated XME files at startup. So every time it starts Darktable, it will look for those files with all of that information, make sure that if there's any new ones, that is updated and inside, which is another great thing if you have, like in my case, all of the files that I have are on a separate drive. I don't keep my working files on my main boot drive. They're on a different media drive. So if for any reason I'm needing to swap things out or change things around, using this look for updated files as I'm dragging and dropping different folders into it of, okay, I didn't need this before. It's on the backup drive. Now I'm pulling it up to my working drive. It's going to look for those new files, and I always have the latest edits at disposal.
No, that's really cool. I always enjoy hearing how you end up actually using, everything as it relates to the photography stuff, because it makes me want to actually get into doing some of it as opposed to, hey, it looks good, sort of.
I've had quite a few people blame me for them buying a camera, just like people chew you out for, oh my gosh, I bought this game because of you. It's been, oh my gosh, I listened to Hardware Addicts and now I have this really cool camera and I'm loving it, which, you know, I don't want to make people spend money, but I love the fact that people have went from just using their cell phone to having a camera in hand and seeing what extra creativity they can have and do and make not only great images, but additional lasting memories that can go with them.
Well, I guess in fairness, Jason, you like to call me Matt the enabler. I guess we can say Wendy is an enabler too.
In my own right,
I for one appreciate all enablers, especially those of hardware and video games. So yeah, and music.
And music. Yeah, and Matt's definitely helped on the music side for us too.
I would never point you to 4,000 video game songs, ever.
Never.
Never. Totally
Which
did.
made my daughter so stinking happy.
Sonic and all of them.
And all of them, yes.
I just want to say that the best video game soundtrack remains Jet Set Radio. Thank you very much.
Ooh.
I am not familiar with that. I will have to look it up.
Ooh, that's a tough one for me. Ugh. I would probably, actually, mine's probably really, really out there. I'd probably say Shadow Hearts Covenant. It's kind of a steampunk vibe to it. So like
imagine that.
It's actually this one's an alternate like World War I kind of, but mixed with like mysticism and stuff. It's really, really kind of cool.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt the Enabler. Now I'm going to have to check that one out.
Totally welcome.
Well, Jason, what are you enabling this week?
I'm enabling two things that I don't know if anybody hears me talk about. Fitness. And fitness and podcasts that aren't about Linux, believe it or not.
Heresy.
I know. I've been just trying to get outside my comfort zone a little bit, you know? So the first thing is my wife had started doing this thing called My Virtual Mission. And she got me hooked on it as well. What it is, it's basically a fitness challenge that you pay for. You do have to pay for it, but I'll tell you why in a second. And every time that you do any kind of physical activity, you know, it's a run, a swim, biking, even just walking outdoor, even just taking a walk outside, you can track your distance, right? Your mileage, your kilometers. And then you can add it to your virtual mission. And what this is you start out by saying, okay, I'm going to virtually travel the Grand Canyon or the Inca Trail or the Missouri River, you know, things like that. And so you add your distance and what your activity was. And then once you do that, you can look at where you are on this virtual map of that destination, right? Of that journey and get like a 360 view of where you are. So sometimes, you know, like once I ended up, I don't know, I was 20 or 30 kilometers in, and I was at the summit at the Inca Trail, and I looked around and it was just gorgeous. And they send you these virtual postcards from yourself with little factoids and photos about that trail or that river or that landmark, right? And they also send you a medal when you have completed the virtual mission. So you get through, I don't know, all 50 kilometers of, you know, virtually swimming the English Channel, and they send you this high quality medal. I mean, it is something to hang up and display. It makes you feel really, really proud that you accomplished that. And so they have a bunch of these different missions. It's at myvirtualmission.com. And I've been really hooked on that because it's making me want to get out and exercise and try and, you know, get healthier. And while I'm doing that, I started listening to a completely different kind of podcast than I have ever experienced. And I think it was one of the Linux for Everyone patrons who recommended this. It's called Mission to Xyxx.
Well, what's it about?
Have you guys heard of it?
No, I haven't never heard of this.
Mission to Xyxx. And they're on Xyxx. And they're on their 4th season now. This is really hard to describe. It's essentially an improvised space opera sitcom in podcast form.
Wow.
And so they start out with this basic, they're diplomats for like the Federated Alliance, and they're going on these diplomatic missions to various planets and meeting, aliens and strange cultures, and they're all just completely dysfunctional people. And you've got your sarcastic droid, and it's very much like It's very much kind of a parody of Star Wars and Star Trek, but it's done so well that like I would watch this on TV. It sounds so professional, but it's almost all improvised and it's hilarious. I was listening to the first couple episodes in the car, and I actually had to turn it off because I was laughing so hard that I could not concentrate on the road. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant and inventive and really, really entertaining. And so, each podcast each episode is basically like an episode. It's one adventure. And they've got, their sponsors that they have, they even do the sponsors they do that in character. Really just from like start to finish, it is such a polished, great production. So Mission to Xyxx, Xyxx.
And that takes amazing talent to do story improv live. I know some of my favorite actors, one reason why I love them so much is because they're so quick on their feet and so witty that they can improv things like this. So even though I am not a Star Wars and a Star Trek fan, which I hear multiple times from Ryan and Michael how I need to be kicked off the team because I'm not a Star Wars or Star Trek fan, but this definitely has me intrigued.
You don't have to be a Star Wars or Star Trek fan to appreciate this.
To enjoy it.
It's basically sci-fi, right? But you'll notice the tropes or the certain kind of default characters that you would see in these movies and shows. Yeah. But you're not gonna lose anything by not having watched Star Trek or Star Wars.
Awesome! I will definitely check it out because that sounds like so much fun. I spend a lot of time in the car.
How long are these episodes, Jason? Just out of curiosity.
22 minutes or so, like a TV episode.
Oh, nice!
Not bad. Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Speaking of being an enabler, yay, more podcast stuff I have to listen to.
Hopefully we've given you a lot to think about in this episode, and we'd like to continue the conversation with you on Telegram, Discourse, Mumble, or even Discord. You can visit the DLN website for info on how to connect to us via all the social channels that we have, and also get information on all of our shows and the show's creators at destinationlinux.network. And you can find me at Kill Your FM on Twitter, the Linux for Everyone Telegram group, and Forbes, among way too many other places.
You can find Nate's information at cubiclenate.com. Links to his regular written blatherings, podcast, and YouTube channel are all there. And you can find my random ramblings on Twitter at MattDLN.
You can find me on Instagram at Linux and Lifts. As always, we thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with another fantastic episode of DLN Xtend. Until then, have a great week, everyone.